All right, you've probably seen this clip floating around social media. It's really something. You have this whole colony of penguins heading towards the ocean, towards food, family, life itself. But then there's this one penguin, and it turns and just starts walking in the complete opposite direction, towards this huge empty mountain range, towards what is for sure its doom. And that's the question, right? That's what has totally captivated millions of people. Is this penguin depressed? Is it trying to make some kind of statement? Or has it just snapped? The internet, of course, has absolutely exploded with theories, turning this one little animal into this global icon of, well, something. And the comments are just priceless. People are projecting everything onto this little guy. Bad breakups, burnout from work, you name it. This comment right here, he must have gotten blocked on WhatsApp, just perfectly sums up how we can't help but see our own little human dramas playing out everywhere, even in the animal kingdom. So let's really set the scene here. I want you to picture it. You've got thousands of penguins, all marching together, driven by pure instinct, towards the ocean that sustains them. It's all about survival. And then there's this single penguin that just stops. It literally watches everyone else leave, and then it makes what looks like a very deliberate choice to walk away from everything it knows. Well, social media didn't waste any time writing a story for it. This became the depressed penguin, or the nihilist penguin. People were sharing it everywhere, saying things like, "This is me on a Monday morning going to the office." It became a whole mood, a super relatable meme for that feeling of just heading in the totally wrong direction. But here's the first major twist in the story. This isn't some new clip that just popped up. It's definitely not AI generated, and it was never meant to be a meme. This footage is actually from way back in 2007, and it's from a famous documentary by the legendary filmmaker Werner Herzog called Encounters at the End of the World. Okay, so let's peel back all the layers of internet jokes and get to what actually happened out there on the ice. Because this isn't just some funny, random clip. It was a real and, frankly, completely baffling event that was witnessed and documented by scientists. So you have Werner Herzog and a whole team of scientists right there in Antarctica watching this massive penguin colony. They see thousands of them all moving together like a single organism. And then this one just breaks from the formation. It pauses for a moment, almost like it's thinking, and then it turns its back on the entire group and starts this lonely march to these desolate, lifeless mountains way off in the distance. And this is where it gets even stranger. The scientists, they felt bad for the little guy. They figured it must be lost or confused, so they actually went over, picked it up, and physically turned it around to face the colony and the sea again. But the second they put it down, it immediately turned right back around and just kept on walking towards those mountains. It was determined. And we're not talking about a short walk here. Those mountains were 80 kilometers away. 80. For a little penguin, that's like an impossible journey. There's no food out there, no water, no shelter, nothing. The only possible outcome was death, either from starvation or just sheer exhaustion. And still, it kept walking. So, this is where the story goes from being just a weird anecdote to a real scientific puzzle. In the documentary, Herzog actually turns to a biologist and asks, "Can penguins go insane?" It's a pretty deep question, and it turns out scientists have a few ideas about what might have been going on. Okay, so the experts have basically narrowed it down to three main possibilities. Two of them are purely biological, and the third one is, well, it's a little more philosophical, let's say. So the leading scientific theory is something called directional disorientation. What that means, in simple terms, is that the penguin's brain just went haywire. See, penguins have this amazing built-in GPS that uses the sun and the Earth's magnetic field to navigate. If that internal compass breaks, the penguin might genuinely believe it's heading in the right direction. So this wasn't an act of rebellion, it was more like a form of mental illness. It thought it was on the right path. A couple of other theories are on the table. One is that a bacterial infection could have affected its brain, just causing total confusion. And then there's Werner Herzog's personal take. He wondered if maybe, even in nature, animals can have a kind of existential crisis, a moment where they just feel like they don't belong anymore and choose to walk a path with no real end. So we have the science, but, that doesn't really explain our fascination with the story, does it? To understand why we're all so obsessed, we kind of have to stop looking at the penguin and start looking at ourselves. I mean, really, why? Why does this one lost, confused animal resonate so deeply with millions of people all over the world? The science is interesting for sure, but our emotional connection to this story, that's maybe even more fascinating.
The simple truth is, we humans are masters of anthropomorphism. That's a fancy way of saying we project our own feelings, our heartbreaks, our frustrations with our jobs, our big existential questions onto everything around us. So we don't just see an animal with a neurological problem, we see a mirror of our own emotional lives.
And because we see ourselves in it, we rewrite the story. We turn this tragic event into something heroic. We want it to be a brave individual, a rebel who had the courage to just walk away from the mindless crowd. We've turned a sick animal into an icon for nonconformists. And this comparison just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? It shows the huge gap between our romantic interpretation and the cold, hard reality. The internet calls it a Sigma male penguin, but really, it's a lost, sick animal. We see a brave nonconformist, but science sees the victim of a tragic malfunction. We've created this relatable hero out of what was just a natural accident. But maybe there's a deeper, more uncomfortable reason we connect with this. Perhaps we look at that penguin and we recognize a part of ourselves that we don't really like to admit exists. You know, the part that knows a relationship is toxic but stays anyway. The part that knows an investment is probably a scam but throws money at it regardless. We, too, sometimes see the right path and deliberately choose the wrong one. And that leads us to the final big question that's really at the heart of this whole viral thing. What does this penguin's journey actually represent in the end? Look, while we love to romanticize the idea of forging your own path, this story is a pretty stark reminder that just going against the crowd isn't always heroic. Sometimes it's not bravery. It's just a terrible, fatal mistake. So, if there's one practical takeaway from this whole thing, it's this. Before you decide you're going to walk off into the mountains, metaphorically speaking, maybe, just maybe, take a second to check your map. Make sure your own internal compass is actually working. Sometimes following the path is the smartest, bravest thing you can do. And that's the question the nihilist penguin leaves us with. Even though its choice was probably not a choice at all, it makes us think about our own. When we knowingly walk towards our own destruction, is that some kind of ultimate act of freedom, or is it just another form of madness? It's definitely something to think about.